Hello, everyone. Welcome to another webcast from Astronomers Without Borders. I'm your host, Andrew Fizakis, the Night Sky Guy. Loving this special week we have in celebration of the Milky Way. It's the Milky Way Star Festival. All week long, August 1st to the 7th, here at AWB, we'll be celebrating our home galaxy and its role over the many millennia in human culture, art, history, science, observation, photography. It's amazing how the Milky Way is so pervasive in so many cultures around the world, and people just love looking it up. And maybe perhaps you have a story about the Milky Way. We'd love to hear about that. You can share that on our website. You want to get all the information about the Milky Way Star Festival and all the different things we like in terms of speakers. We have guides up there. We've got artwork and photography coming in all week long, sky tours as well. You can find out all that information on our website at astronomerswithoutborders.org. That's astronomerswithoutborders.org. Stay tuned on the comment section. I'll be including all of that stuff during this webcast today. So without further ado, today we have a very special guest speaker who is on the board of directors here at AWB. We're really excited to have her on our team. She's also an astrophysicist and an author of a new book. I'm talking about Dr. Moiya McTier. Moiya, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hey, welcome. Hi, Moiya.
Thank you. Hi. It's good to be
Hey,
here.
it's great to see you. And first off, let me just congratulate you on your new upcoming book. And it's so well timed. I couldn't believe when I heard your book. And it's coming out next week, I think August 16th, is it?
Yes, it is. So soon.
soon. Yeah, it's really coming up soon. And here we're gonna put up just to show folks the book. There it is, all its glory. The Milky Way, an autobiography of our galaxy. I love the title, an auto. So this is our home galaxy telling its story.
Yeah, from its own perspective. It's been more than 10 billion years. It's about time for the galaxy to have its say.
Yeah, I would say, and I'm sure there's lots of interesting, juicy tidbits that it has to say about itself and all the things that the Milky Way has seen over her lifetime. Really amazing. Moiya, maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself too, to folks, your background.
Yeah, I'd love to. I am an astronomer. I'm a folklorist. I studied both astronomy and mythology in college and then got my PhD studying the motion of stars around the Milky Way galaxy. And that led me to writing this book. Because I was writing it at the same time as my PhD dissertation. So I wanted to do like double duty and write a book about the Milky Way.
Yeah, and my goodness, you really packed a lot of information into this book. Everyone who's viewing this book, by the way, special surprise, thanks to Moiya's publishers, we'll have a little excerpt that'll be available. We'll put a link to that people can read out of Moiya's book. Little juicy tidbits there, and we'll have a link to where folks will be able to order the book as well. I already saw that it's on Amazon. It's right there.
Yes.
So it's going to be great. So, Moiya, so the Milky Way, it has a lot of stuff. Do you have a story about the Milky Way? Maybe before you begin your presentation, I'd love to. Do you have any kind of personal story you'd like to share?
Oh, I mean, I had planned on telling this in the talk, but I remember the first time I saw the Milky Way in its full glory in an unlight polluted sky. I saw my shadow cast by the Milky Way, and it was, I think, pretty life-changing for me. I mean, it's such a gorgeous sight, and before that, I had been studying astronomy, but I hadn't really understood how powerful sky or stargazing can be, and now I incorporate it a lot more into my science communication.
Well, I can imagine. It's a very inspiring sight. And for anyone who hasn't seen the Milky Way, if you're stuck in the city, it's something you have to do. This is a great time of the year to do it. And in fact, the next few nights, the moon is out of the sky. It sets very early. It's a very young crescent moon, waxing crescent moon. So it leaves behind a dark evening sky. So this week, if any of you watching can get outside and see, look for the Milky Way. It's just fantastic. It stretches from like the southern horizon. I'm in Montreal, Canada, and I've seen the Milky Way the last few nights. I'm lucky to be far away from a city, and I can see that beautiful cloudy bands, and there's dark rifts, and it's just like I can spend hours looking at it. So it's amazing. But so those of you watching, if you have any personal stories, share it with us in the comment section. We'd love to see that. Also on the website, there's reports. You can actually share your story with everyone around the world on our website. You can just go to astronomerswithoutborders.org and just follow the links for the Milky Way Star Festival, and you'll get all that information, and you can share your experience too. Now, Moiya, let's dive right in and see your presentation. I'm really excited. I'm going to start your presentation up. Let me see if I can get that going here.
Thank you. For everyone who's watching, we have some technical difficulties. So Andrew is kind enough to click through the presentation for me. And I thank you all for bearing with us as we go through this experience.
Yeah, here we go. So I'm going to put this up for everyone here. Let's see. And it should be right there. There we go. Moiya, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. Hello, everyone. Happy Milky Way week. Happy Milky Way month. I mean, in my eyes, it's like always the Milky Way millennium, you know? So happy Milky Way time to everyone here. Andrew, next. So, like the slide says, I am here to talk about humanity's cosmic connections. And by the end of this brief little talk, I hope that you all understand that just like a spider web, we are all connected to each other and to the cosmos. And that connection is really, really old. But I am going to start with a connection that's a little newer. I'm going to start with my personal connection to space. I actually found space by chance. I was a sophomore in college when my friend dragged me with her to an astronomy class, and that was a formative experience for me because before that I wasn't really interested in space beyond maybe the celestial aesthetic. I love moons and suns and stars and how they look, but I wasn't interested in studying it. But I did fall in love with the fact that we can study the vast reaches of our universe from our tiny little corner of space here on our pale blue dot. Next. And so for the last 8 years, I have been studying astrophysics. I next did a research project in pretty much every subfield of astronomy that I could find. I studied star formation, exoplanets, quasars, black holes. I even did a project where I helped build a telescope that could detect radiation left over from the Big Bang. This is called the cosmic microwave background. Next, Andrew. But at the same time, I was also really interested in folklore. I loved learning about the stories and myths and legends that people around the world told and how those stories got incorporated into their identities. Next, Andrew. And I think that where these two fields intersect, astronomy and folklore, you see really cool things like eclipses that people tried to explain with mythology throughout human history. You see constellations and the stories that we still tell these days. You know the story maybe of Orion the hunter chasing after Pleiades, the seven sisters. Maybe you know the story of Andromeda, the princess from Greek mythology. We also see shooting stars. These are not actually stars, but we say in folklore that you can make a wish on them. And that is because in Greek mythology, it was said that the gods would look towards us when there was a shooting star because the star drew their attention. And when they were looking towards us, they were more likely to grant our wishes. So you can see that there are a lot of places where these two fields intersect. Next, Andrew. And this intersection is where I am happiest because I love seeing how people connect the stories they tell and the observations they make about the universe. I think that there is so much science in the myths we tell about space. Uh, so those are my connections. Today, we are connected to space because we're celebrating the Milky Way. It's the Milky Way Festival, which is inspired by Japan's Tanabata Festival held annually. Next, Andrew. But we know that humanity's connection to space goes back so much further than the Tanabata Festival, which you'll hear more about later this week. It goes back to maybe 1,000 years. But humanity has been thinking about space for a lot longer than that. Next. And I think you have to click it twice. So if you, it's really impossible to say how long humans have been staring at space. It's going to look dark for a second. That's the point. But we know now that about 80% of the night sky is affected by light and air pollution. So we don't get to see the same sky that our ancestors saw. But this image, as it comes into view, is showing us what an unobstructed night sky looks like. I said before I started the talk that I saw the Milky Way in all of its glory for the first time standing on top of a mountain in Chile where I got to see my shadow cast by the Milky Way. And that, unfortunately, is a pretty rare experience these days. So if you have never been in a place with a dark enough sky to see space like this, then I highly encourage you to go to the Dark Sky Association's website so you can find the nearest dark sky to you, because I think everyone should see this. So those are what our ancestors, that's what our ancestors saw. So for probably hundreds of thousands of years, since before we were even technically humans, we were looking up at space and telling stories about it. But we also have hard evidence that humans were looking at space at least 30,000 years ago. Next, Andrew. So this image is of an ancient mammoth tusk that was found in southern Germany. It's around 32 to 38,000 years old, and researchers think that this might be one of the oldest examples of a human-made star chart. It's really hard to see because this thing is super old, but researchers, archaeologists believe that that image carved into the tusk is Orion, or at least the constellation that we call Orion today. It's the hunter that's shooting its bow and arrow, and archaeologists believe that this is evidence that humankind was paying attention and deriving meaning from space at least 30,000 years ago. Next, if we zoom forward in time to just 16,000 years ago, that's nothing. We can see that ancient humans were depicting space in the art that they had available to them. And the art that survives from then is mostly in the form of cave paintings. So this is from the Lascaux cave in France, showing from 16,000 years ago images painted that show constellations and show how stars are arranged relative to each other. And next, this is just a mere 5,000 years ago. This is basically yesterday in cosmic time. But we see evidence of humans building henges around Europe. Stonehenge is the most well-known of them, but there are a bunch of others. These are large rock features that were carefully aligned with astronomical events and objects so that at a certain point of year, the sun would shine through a specific set of rocks, for example. And this shows us that throughout human history, we have looked at the stars, we have let them keep time for us, we've let them entertain us, and we have used them practically in our lives. Next, Andrew, we also see that space is used when we are asking, as humans, some of the most fundamental questions that we can ask, like, where did we come from? Next, so many cultures around the world placed their deities and their creation stories in the sky because, the sky is a faraway place that we humans, before airplanes, couldn't access. And so it seemed magical. It seemed like if there are these all powerful beings, of course they would live in the sky. And of course, that's where they would have been when they created the universe. So you see this in Norse mythology, Aztec, Mayan, Australian mythology. You see this all around the world, but I really love the Hawaiian creation myth, which says that the sky earth goddess, that the earth goddess Papahana Umoku and the sky father Wakea created the universe from nothing. They also created the stars and they created other gods, and then they created Earth. And Mauna Kea, which is a sacred mountain in Hawaii, was the first mountain that they formed. So in Hawaiian mythology, this mountain, Mauna Kea, is the origin place of life. It's the origin of the entire world. And next, you can see how mountains are often sacred. It's sacred in this story, and high places that are closer to the gods are sacred in a lot of mythologies around the world. The tops of telescopes also happen to be really good places to put telescopes because they are above most of the atmosphere and you get an unobstructed view of the night sky. And unfortunately, there are a lot of examples of times when the sacredness of mountains and their goodness for science create tension. And we can see that on Mauna Kea with the 30-meter telescope controversy. Which I'm just going to mention and then not talk about, and instead move on to the practical connections, because we haven't just been using space to answer these philosophical quandaries that we have. We are using space for real practical things, like next, timekeeping. And it's not just keeping the time of the year or the time of the day. Like you can look up at the sun and see what time of day it is. Astronomy, these stars in the sky almost acted as like a reminder that you would set on your phone, a calendar alert. For example, in ancient Egypt, every year around this time, late in summer, the star that we call Sirius starts appearing above the horizon in the morning. And at the same time of year, around late summer, the Nile River would flood, and the nutrients that the flooding river brought to the rest of the farmland in Egypt was actually life-saving. It helped nourish the crops for the next season. So the Nile flooding, even though it was dangerous, was ultimately a good thing. And this star, Sirius, rising above the horizon every year was a reminder that this annual flood was about to happen. Next. We also know that ancient humans, for thousands of years, used the stars to navigate. There are also animals that use the stars to navigate. We know that some birds do this. We know that dung beetles do this when they're, walking backwards, scooting their little balls of poop. They are following the Milky Way. And we know that Polynesian wayfarers were using their knowledge of the stars and how they're positioned relative to each other to find their way around Polynesia. They were able to navigate between the islands of Polynesia because they were so good at using the stars to navigate. Next, we also see that humans have been using astronomy to preserve their culture. If you go to another place and they have different constellations, or if they have different stories and myths that they tell about the sky, that is a way to identify them as belonging to a different culture. You can preserve your own culture by telling these stories and passing them on to the next generation. So those are practical ancient uses of astronomy. Next, over a few thousand years, we started to shift from astrology to astronomy, to astrophysics. So in the 1600s, next, Andrew, we invented telescopes that let us see deeper into space than we ever could before. We were no longer limited to our eyesight to help us learn about space. And then next, in what seemed like no time at all, in just a few hundred years, which really is a blip in human timescales, we learned the difference between planets in our solar system and the distant stars. From our perspective on Earth, they kind of look the same. And then we learned what stars are made of. We learned how they work. Next, Andrew, we even eventually sent telescopes into space. We learned that we are orbiting a star that we call the sun, and that we live in a collection of stars called a galaxy. And just 100 years ago, we learned that our Milky Way galaxy is just one of many. Next, when we sent JWST, the latest big craze space telescope, up into space, when it launched on Christmas of last year, I think the news spread worldwide. It's now not uncommon for space news to get international attention. And you, because of modern technology, you kind of interact with space even more than our ancestors did. Every time you send a text, every time you look up directions to a new coffee shop, every time you use Wi-Fi, or even every time you go out to tan because you want to get that summer color, you are interacting with space. Every time you use the internet and all those technological things, you're interacting with space in a way that your ancestors never could, which is kind of cool. Next. I made this point in my book, The Milky Way, an autobiography of our galaxy. Next, Andrew. In the first chapter of the book, the Milky Way says, because the whole book is written from the point of view of our galaxy, the Milky Way says, "Everything you've ever seen or touched is a part of me." This is a way of getting at that old, famous Carl Sagan quote that we are all made of stardust. The Milky Way is like, yeah, you are all made of me. I created all of you. We're all the same thing. So I really wanted to get people to internalize that message. I wanted people to see all of these connections. Next, Andrew. The book comes out on August 16th, and this is just a small, incomplete list of the things the book covers. I talk about the birth of the Milky Way and its early years. I talk about the names that different cultures have for it. I do creation and afterlife and apocalypse myths from around the world, including the Moiya hero twin story, which I didn't know much about before I wrote the book, but now is one of my favorite myths. I tried to put a little bit of something for everyone in this book, and so I think that you will probably find something to enjoy. I know that this festival is only a week long, and that is a shame. We should be celebrating the Milky Way all the time. So one really great way that you can do that is to get this book and read it, and then you can make the Milky Way Festival last the entire month, or more if you're a slow reader. But yeah, thank you for listening to this. Go out and enjoy the Milky Way.
That's great. That's fantastic. Moiya, you know, it's amazing, throughout your talk here, it was neat to see, the real connections that we've had as a species to the Milky Way, and how it goes back and how it's changed over time with our knowledge of science. As we had more technology with the telescopes getting better, our vision of the cosmos has
Mhm.
clarified. um, what do you see? I mean, this might be a little. I mean, it's a big question, but I guess what do you see in the future for humanity's connection to the Milky Way? Where are we going? We've had this mythical connection, and I guess where
Mhm.
it started, ancient time. Now we started to really pick at the where we are, understanding that we're in this big
Mhm.
island of stars. But where are we going?
Oh, we have so much to learn. At the end of this book, I have a chapter called Secrets, where the Milky Way says all of it hints at all of the things that humans are still trying to understand, like the secrets that the Milky Way didn't want to give away in the book. And those are things like really understanding what dark matter and dark energy actually are. It's seeing if there are aliens. I think that we still have a lot of learning to do about space, but ultimately, I think where we're going is to space. I think that one of the next steps in our cosmic connection journey is getting more people to experience what's called the overview effect. Getting people who want to go to space the opportunity to do that and look back at Earth and see it all at once through like a tiny window. I think that's really important. That is not that is not me saying going to Mars and setting up a colony on Mars. That might be in our future, but I think it's really important for everyone to get like a taste of space, which is one of the things I wanted to do with this book. Not everyone is going to get to travel outside of our atmosphere, but hopefully, with this book, you'll be able to shift your perspective to thinking from the point of view of something bigger than not just yourself, but bigger than all of us.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. That speaks a lot to what, of course, here at AWB, we believe in one people, one sky is our motto. And, I mean, it really, we can think of that all of humanity are, we're on this spaceship Earth, we call Earth, traveling
Mm.
through the Milky Way. And this, and I think what's interesting is a lot of people don't think that the sky, the stars, that everything that's part of the Milky Way and the universe is really part of nature. We're not, there's no
Mm.
disconnect there. People are so focused on what's nature in terms of our planet, but it goes way beyond that, doesn't it? It's everything else up there.
Yeah, it's everything else up there, and actually, Andrew, lately, I've been starting to think of everything down here as nature too. I grew up in the woods. I have a very close connection to nature. And now I live in New York City, which I don't think could be any more different from where I grew up. And people always ask me, "Oh, do you miss the woods? Do you miss nature?" And I'm like, I kind of just see these skyscrapers as another facet of nature. Everything comes from nature. Everything is coming from the universe. We're all connected. And I know that sounds very cheesy, but it has helped me a lot when I started thinking about things from that framework.
It's kind of it speaks to mindfulness, doesn't it, in a sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. It helps me be a lot more mindful.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Wow. Well, Moya, look, I'm going to put up your book again so everybody can see The Milky Way, an autobiography of our galaxy by Dr. Moiya McTier. Moya, it's a book that's going to keep coming out on August 16th. Everyone can grab it. I know I'm going to get a copy of this. This is fantastic. And for all of you guys that are listening, watching, we'll have a link put in the comments very shortly on a little excerpt from the book, so you get a taste of what the Milky Way has to offer and the secrets that it has. And you've done a really amazing. I've seen bits of the book already, and I've read through it. So you've done a fantastic job, Moya. Congratulations on it.
Thank
It's good.
you.
I think people will really enjoy it, and I hope it gets people to think about where they are in the universe. Think of getting outside and looking at the Milky Way, and it's for everyone or all ages. And this fit perfectly with our Milky Way festival.
It did. It was kind of a magical coincidence. Yeah,
It
at the
was.
end of the book, the Milky Way signs off by saying, "Come out and say hi to me sometime." It's always there, it's always listening and watching, so go say hi.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I recommend everyone to do. And stay tuned, folks, for this week, because there's a lot more coming this week. Moiya is just the first kickoff celebration event, but we'll have more events all week long. And you can see the link just below us here. It's astronomerswithoutborders.org, and all the plans and events are there. And we invite you to share your Milky Way experience as well, whether it's art, through photography, or just a story that you've heard of, or something that you've interacted at the time with the Milky Way. We'd love to hear it and share it with the world. This is a great time for that. And Moiya, thanks again for being here. Don't be a stranger around AWB here on our programs. We're going to invite you again.
Good. I always love being here with AWB folks. Thanks again.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, take care. And everyone out there, we wish all of you clear skies. And remember our motto, one people, one sky. Bye-bye, everyone. Stay safe.
From the pale blue dot to the distant stars, we are one. One people, one sky.